Hey guys, this is Tom Box, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys one of my work in progress builds, Melodious Voiceless Voice, aka lip syncing. So this past weekend, I decided to take a lot of my work in progress builds and test drive them blindly at locals. Know very little about them to see how it would fare. Basically, you read the cards, try to figure out the combo on the spot. But there's a big difference between doing a combo concept, in front of a camera versus playing it against an opponent, and that's kind of what I did. So I took Tenpai and I took this one to locals as like the actual test contenders. Honestly, Tenpai kind of performed as I expected Tenpai to perform, whereas this one was a bit more surprising. It can simplify the game state a lot, and it's pretty easy to overextend sometimes. So I trimmed out some of the fat. I decided to take a lot of that tournament data and reapply it into here and adjust how I would normally play. So when you take a deck and you don't know how things work, this is kind of what you get. But now that we've kind of tuned it out, I'm going to be sharing with you guys my main deck, my extra deck, and we got some combos for you guys to kind of taste test to see where you want to take this deck as well. So make sure you guys hit that like button, hit subscribe, ding that notification bell, and let's go. Starting with the main deck, we have Triple Diviner of the Herald. This is the one monster that I chose to keep maxed out. It is a level 2 monster and is one of your key normal summons of the deck, and it's really powerful. However, because it's level 2, it can also be pendulum summoned out through the Melodious scale, and that matters a lot because you do have conflicting normal summons once you put in the Melodious package. So it's not just between this and low, it's not between Diviner, low, and Refrain if you open the refrains in your hand. So you have to play 3 copies of this because it's probably the best one overall, because it lets you send Trias Hierarchia into the graveyard and can sometimes be baited against your opponent. Of course, it's still a very standard card to get your low onto the field, so Diviner gets you into low anyway. So low is the one that I chose to cut back down. I'm almost pushing this down to like 1 low, but sometimes it's nice to have a normal summon of low as well. So we have 2 lows instead of playing triple low now. And the other normal summon that is in conflict is going to be Refrain, the Melodious Songstress, because this one on summon you get to add Couplet. Couplet will get you the Melodious Concerto. Concerto will help you perform the fusion, and with your first fusion, that's going to set up both your scales and you get to play your entire board. Basically, develop the board without using any other cards, and that's why it's really powerful, ridiculously good to some degree. Generates like a +3 plus, and then you get also the Appaloosa on the field. It's really strong. I'll show you guys the combo. At the end, with you have a normal summon of that card, 3 copies of Saphira, because the Melodious package already offers you a level 7 light monster, so that you can just open with this and you can still get to the low. So the Omni Negate is the part that comes out kind of a bit later on in terms of the combo. Then we have 1 copy of Saravis, 1 copy of Couplet because you need this to search. And as for the tech package, you don't have to play this. If you want to play a clean 40 and just use different rank 4 toolboxes, then you can cut the Nemesis flag in the Protos package. Something that I learned is that Protos, of course, is a semi-nomi. It can be revived by your opponent. So in any case, if you're going to be playing against any deck that runs Dark, just call Dark, losing SP, losing IP, losing Dark, it's just a more favorable matchup. I actually got this summon against me, so I'll admit I got this summon against me. Actually cost me the entire game, even though I did summon it out, locked them out of fire, but it wasn't enough because the Dark stuff can help clear the board, and I got a bit greedy. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. In that case, sometimes that stuff happens, so it's kind of neat to see how things go, and that's actually through a disrupted combo of all things. So this is still pretty cool. I still would run this over the Thunder Dragon Colossus just for the extra deck space. But if you want to play Colossus, Colossus is 1 card that cannot be revived back from your opponent. So if you want to minimize the space and play Corridor, that's fine too. But overall, I would still play this package because certain matchups that you just call Dark, they immediately just lose. U-Bells can't play. You call Fire against Tenpai, Tenpai just immediately lose. So there's a lot you can do with this deck. Then for the rituals, we play 2 copies of Skull Guardian and 2 copies of Saravis. I'm not playing the new one. I don't think it is actually needed. I don't know what it even really offers to the deck aside from like, oh, you get to discard a card, I get to draw cards, maybe fix up my hand a little, but I'm not playing pure Voiceless Voice. So I'm choosing just to play the ones that I already know that are very good. Why not? And so, another key thing about Saravis is that you can search this into your hand, and if you're going to be playing Thunder Dragon Colossus, add this to your hand so they can't negate it. Like, they try to imperm your Colossus, you'd be like, no. It's another fun thing you can do with the deck, so that's also kind of neat. Let's go into hand traps. Alright, hand trap wise, in terms of monsters, we play 2 Veiler. It's really awkward in the current format. I played 3 yesterday, and I can tell you it was a little bit rough because of Tenpai existing. Like, it's hard when you can't really use this in the battle phase, so I kind of had to cut this back. I had to put back a card. This is a card I did not play all day yesterday, which was Ash, Blossom, and Joyous Blink. Now I'm playing this in 3s again because first of all, Tenpai is very, very annoying, and it's still a decent card even against, say, the Snake Eye deck. Sure, they can go into Hita and whatnot, but because of the next card, it matters a lot less. Because if they do go into Hita, you can choose to destroy that Hita overall and just give them a free search with Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. And with that being said, you can also drop, you know, Infinite Impermanence. Whereas the Nibiru, you say, yeah, it doesn't work against Tenpai. There's several decks that doesn't really work against, so I chose to kind of opt out of it for now. And some decks are really just, oh, you Nibiru me, I'm just gonna play through it anyway. I'm just gonna try to disrupt your board and minimize your board through like stuff like Ghost Ogre. And Ghost Ogre is still really good against like Pearly, Yubel, even against Tenpai's Field Spell. There's just more value in the Ogre. And in my Tenpai build, I think I already showed you, I like main deck like 3 Ghost Ogres just because I really feel like it's a really good card. And it does show. Even against this deck, it's really good too because you can destroy Barrier. Now, in terms of spell cards, I've cut down the prep rights to 2. It's just what I did just so I can do a little bit of min-maxing. 2 copies of Prayer and 3 copies of Barrier. And yesterday I did play Blessing, but Blessing served more like a brick from time to time because like I really wanted to play it and I used it, but it also cost me the game because I used it from time to time. But I think it does deserve a spot in the deck because it helps you recycle the trap card of Radiance of the Voiceless Voice. If you aren't gonna force yourself into a grind game, being able to just cycle this card back and choosing it to constantly pop against your opponent, I think there is value there. And being able to add back Saphira that you already banished and just get free cycling and plays better under a D-shifter, that's where Blessing really comes in, especially in a matchup where you do expect people to play a D-shifter. Then you should at least side a copy, and that's where my stance with that card is. But for now, to cut it to 42, this is where we're at so far. I guess I'll just show the trap card because it's the 1 copy of the Radiance. And then we have the Ostinato package with the Melodious Concerto. I mean, you can choose not to play Concerto. I'm just kidding. You have to play this just so you can set up your skills properly, because if you have to normal summon, then this is probably one of your options to not waste your monsters. I guess you can choose not to play it. Overall, this is one of the bricky draws that if you happen to draw into it, it's not that great. But overall, for Ostinato, this card's not once per turn. So if their opponent ashes it, you just play another copy. So have fun with that. But they can also Ghost Spell the card. I'm going to explain why you can Ghost Spell it, because in the card text, it states that during the end phase of this turn, destroy the fusion monster summoned by this effect, and if you do, if all the fusion material that were used for its fusion summon are in your graveyard, you special summon them. And that's all part of one whole effect, okay? It's one whole effect, so yeah, you can Ghost Spell this as well. So you can Ash and Ghost Spell this, but that gives your opponent way too many things to Ghost Spell and Ash in the deck, which is good because when there's hand trap overload, that means something's always going to leak through. And then you also have the 1 bricky card, which is Melodious Concerto, which is not great because you want to search this with the couplet, but sometimes it's in your hand and there's no real discard outlet in the deck, so you're going to be stuck with the card, and it's very difficult to activate. Now, Ostinato needs to have a blank board, so this is your open turn play for sure. You're not going to normal something and then start playing it, and that's essentially it for the main deck for now. So for the extra deck, let's start off with the card that I did not play yesterday, which is Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon. Immediately regretted not playing. You should be playing if you're going to be playing this package. Why? Because you get to establish an Omni to get really early on through the use of your 2 other level 7 monsters, Baka. Sure, if the combo doesn't really successfully work out, at least you have a level 7 light monster to act as tribute for your, I guess, your big ritual monsters. Alright, so at the worst you have that, but Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, originally I was just playing generic Link 2s to fulfill an attribute requirement for Protos. I realized that that's no longer needed because if you can put a water in the graveyard, then you're going to meet that requirement anyway. And that water monster is going to be the Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon, because if this card's sent to the graveyard, boom, you get yourself an Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon straight out for free. So that's why it works out. And the other materials we have for our extra deck for Xyz, we have the Infernal Flame Banshee and the Abyss Dweller. So we have fire and water. This to shut down the graveyard, this to shut down the rest of the deck. If you know their attribute, if it's like a dark deck, I think you should be just calling dark overall for the Protos, but this is also pretty useful. But if neither of these are useful, then you can just get rid of the bodies, because Trias Hierarchia can help you draw 2 cards, and that does matter from time to time. So judge it based off of your hands, because sometimes these monsters are just not good enough unless you know the matchup. So there's a lot of decision making based off of matchups. Then we have the 2 synchro monsters. We have Herald of the Arclight and the Chaos Angel. I think this is pretty standard. So for the Link package, we're choosing to play variety. So we have Dynamundo, we have SP Little Knight, we have the IP Masquerena, and we also have Nightmare Cerberus. You don't have to play this where there's no Link 1. If you want to play much more standard, more optimized lines for access code and relinquish anima, then feel free to cut the Cerberus, but you should probably cut some of the other stuff that in the main deck anyway, because you're probably not choosing to play this deck for the diversity. Rather, you want to play a more optimized line. Hopefully that the simplicity will work out better. And you know what? To each their own. So we do have space that we can trade off. One card you can't cut is Exceeds the Pendulum, because that's the one that helps you climb into the Appaloosa on the opening turn. So Underworld Goddess might be the one that you have to trade off for an additional SP. If you think you have enough damage to deal against your opponent, you don't need the versatility of the card to out some, really unbreakable monsters, the tower-esque monsters, then this is the package I'm currently playing. Alright, so you may have seen something similar to the Legacy Destruction combo video, but I showed this end board is going to be a bit different, and I'm also going to show you a pivot point, so you can use that as a reference point to see how you're going to diversify your play, because it's not as linear as it may think. So, starting off with the Ostinato, activate Ostinato, send the 2 refrains into the graveyard, and summon out the Baka from the deck. Activate the Baka, and that's going to summon the last refrain out of the deck, and activate the refrain. Because it got normal or special summon, you get to add a Melodious monster into your hand, and we're going to add Couplet into your hand. Reveal the Couplet like a Poplar, and that's going to summon out a refrain from the graveyard or another Melodious in your hand. And now you can activate the Couplet effect. Because you only control Melodious monsters, you're going to add the Concerto into your hand. Activate the Concerto, fuse away with your Pendulum Scale, the Couplet and the refrain, putting both of them into the extra deck, and we're going to summon out another copy of Baka. Now that is a Fusion Melodious that's going to trigger both of our Couplet and refrain in the extra deck, and that's going to scale themselves with a 1 scale and a 9 scale, setting up your Pendulum Scales for free. Overlay the 2 7s that you have established onto the field, and special summon the Absolute Dragon. Absolute Dragon is cool because now we can take all of these monsters, and we're going to link summon into an IP Masquerena, and this is going to set up a pretty big chain link. So chain link 1, Absolute Dragon, chain link 2, Baka, chain link 3, Melodious, Concerto bottom decks itself, okay? And we're going to draw a card. Baka is going to summon the refrain from the graveyard, and the Absolute Dragon is going to summon out a Vortex, alright? So this establishes an Omni Negate, and positioning does matter, so try to keep the Vortex away from the arrows as much as possible. From here, we're going to link climb, so taking the refrain and the IP, we're going to go into Exceeds the Pendulum. On summon, Exceeds the Pendulum is going to add refrain back into your hand. Using the Exceeds the Pendulum, because we have scale 1 and 9, we get to summon this card out for free, not as a Pendulum summon, but just as Exceeds the Pendulum effect, and we get the link climb one more time into an Appaloosa. You can go to Access Code, you can go to other big monsters if you choose to play that. So this gives us the 2 monster negate, the Omni Negate, which is going to eventually expire, but if you want to keep it, you can. So consider this as a bit of a save point. Alright, so this is the point we're going to quick save. So Pendulum play first into Proto, so we're going to Pendulum summon out our 2 refrains and our Diviner. Diviner effect is going to send Trias into the graveyard, so let's find that Trias. This is the card that we sent into the graveyard, the bottom of the deck earlier, so we're going to put Trias. And Trias effect, we're going to tribute the Diviner, we're going to do a little quick switcheroo, and that's going to trigger our Diviner. That's going to summon out Low from the deck. Low effect is going to put the Barrier. Barrier effect is also going to give us a Saphira, and we're going to activate Saphira, putting that into the grave, and the Prayers of the Voiceless Voice, and adding into our hand. Not Nemesis Flag, sorry, the Ritual. We're going to get to Nemesis Flag in a second. We're going to overlay these 2. We're going to keep this arrow open for now, because we want to do some co-link magic with it in a second. And we're going to go into the Infernal Flame Banshee. We're going to activate the Banshee. Okay, we're going to detach, and that's going to add to our hand the Nemesis Flag that we added earlier. Next, we're going to take both the Trias and the Blow, and we're going to link them up. This is going to cause the Trias to get banished, and that's going to put a Nightmare Cerberus in here. I'm pretty sure you don't know what I'm doing at the moment, but trust me, it's totally worth it. We're going to go Nemesis Flag, put back the Trias. Okay, so that's the other card that gets bottom deck. So we get 2 cards that will get bottom deck. This one's technically already shuffled, so this is the fresh bottom deck. Summon out the Nemesis Flag. Nemesis Flag effect, use that to add the Protoss into our hand. And we're going to be banishing our Infernal Flame Banshee. Alright, so this puts this into the graveyard. We're going to also banish the Absolute Dragon. because that's water. So we have our attribute matching, and we're going to get rid of one of our light monsters. I don't think it really matters which one it is. And we're going to summon out our Protoss onto the field. So Protoss is now summoned onto the field. Now we're going to activate the effect of Infernal Flame Banshee because we do have a Pyro monster when it got banished. So this is going to summon back onto the field. And now this is the part where it gets a little bit more fun. So if you want to hit, say, fire monsters, then you can hit fire monsters more or less right away right now by just calling fire. It's fine. Or if you choose to play cards like Nightmare Phoenix in your extra deck, then you can cause a cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect Appaloosa. Basically, your cooling chunk here cannot be destroyed. And then you can call earth, you can call fire, you can call dark, you can call whatever, and more or less your monsters are all going to be safe. But in this case, I want to call dark. So how do you maintain a dark board and make sure that things are going to be useful? Well, just link away these two monsters first into an SP Little Knight, co-link it with the Cerberus. Now, if you call the dark now with Protoss, none of these will be destroyed because co-link monsters cannot be destroyed by card effects. So you're not going to be able to destroy your own SP Little Knight. So keeping the SP Little Knight more or less live during your opponent's turn. And you also lock your opponent out of dark, which is also very important because that means this zone here is pretty open for just putting a monster here because they can't go into Relinquish Anima. And that also means that now if you activate Saphira, by banishing it, you can tribute away the level 7, which is the Odd Eyes Vortex. And this is not the ritual spell, so you can use non-light monsters and you can summon out your Skull Guardian. This is going to trigger the Low. Low is going to summon back onto the field, and here we go. So this is kind of the end board. Now, I did make a little bit of a positioning mistake here, and just to let you know, we still have 3 additional cards in hand with these 3 tokens. But the thing that I made a mistake on is if I actually put the Protoss on the opposite side, this actually makes it a little bit better. Say we actually put the Protoss on the opposite side like this, then we can actually link these 2 away. All right, and then we can make Dynamundo. Why does that matter? Because if you can make Dynamundo here, note that you're not going to get Bestialed against your opponent because they're dark locked out anyway. So they can't banish us with Bestial. They have to use Call by the Grave. Otherwise, they are going to bust on the play. And that means on Dynamundo during your opponent's turn, you can use Dynamundo, summon back your copy of Guardian. And that means the Low can be summoned back onto the field. And again, you don't have to worry about, say, the Relinquish Anima. They're dark locked after all. And then that means you get to put Radiance on the board too. So this would be like a full board. This cannot be destroyed by card effects, so not to mention it can just dodge. But this is a pretty mean board. Alright, quick save loaded. Now we're back to this particular point. Say we don't want to go into our rank 4s and you want to play more hand traps, and you do have more hand traps. You can dig for more cards. First of all, just Pendulum summon 2 cards and the 3rd card here. So that's 3 cards total. Pendulum summon, activate the effect of Diviner. So this part is not really changing all that much. Trias gets tossed into the graveyard. But this time around, Trias is going to, well, activate. And we're going to tribute all of these cards, keeping the Omni Negate live, okay, just upon the activation. And so this gets summoned, this gets tributed, and you get to draw 2 cards because you tributed 3 fairies this time, so a free Pot of Greed along the way does not hurt, so you get 2 additional cards just from this particular play. It's pretty awesome. So your total hand size here is now 6. However, Diviner has to activate, of course, which means we have to get ourselves the Low onto the field. And how low will you go? Well, that's going to go into Barrier. All right, so we got ourselves a Barrier. Continuing the line of Barrier, get the Saphira sent to the grave, and you also throw the Prayers into the graveyard, adding to our hand a Skull Guardian, which means we can perform ourselves a ritual summon with this particular play. Hand size now is pretty ridiculous. The 3 original cards, the 3 card that we drew, and of course the Skull Guardian, putting us at 7. So if you have hand traps on this board, it's pretty solid, all right? And you have an Omni Negate, you have 2 negates here. You're just trying to drown your opponent out from being able to play the game, even without, locking out specific parts of, the mechanics here. So if you want to do something kind of fun here, you can just do the ritual summon, send the Low comes back. That's an option if you want to do that. There's just many ways that you can just try to do something a bit different. You can put more Link monsters, for instance. But you know what? Let's keep it simple. We're just going to perform a ritual summon here. We're going to activate Saphira. We can tribute away our Low. Low is going to come back, of course. So summon out the Skull Guardian. And then Low effect. Low summons itself back onto the field. It's a pretty basic board. You can make yourself a Chaos Angel if you want to keep pushing. And remember, While you're making this board with Ostinato, I just want to point out that Oddeyes Vortex Dragon is also there to kind of push away one of your opponent's attack position monsters, because it does return a card to the hand, one of their face-up attack position cards. So this can be used in a much more aggressive manner. Instead of going to Appaloosa, you can go for cards like Access Code. If you choose to play Access Code over the Underworld Goddess, you can just use a lot of board breakers just from the Ostinato side and just play your way through, and then finish it off with the Voiceless Voice stuff, go into Chaos Angel, just break your opponent's board. So this is the pivot point, all right? This is one of them. So I'm going to use this one hand to kind of highlight multiple things here. The one refrain combo and why it's not really good with low in terms of pendulum scaling. However, having it with a Saphira or a regular voiceless voice combo, you just basically have 2 lines for you to access, which means they may or may not have enough hand trap to play against you. Normal summon out the refrain. If they let this go, then you play it as you will, but if they don't let it go, they impermit or whatever, then you can try to do the regular voiceless line right next to it. And this is also a fairy, so it can be tributed off. So we're going to use that to add couplet. With couplet, you don't have anything in grave, you don't have any of the other in hand, so you just don't get an effect for the reveal at all. So we're just gonna activate the couplet. Using couplet's effect, we're gonna add Concerto. We're still going to play through all 3 copies of refrain. So with that, we're gonna activate the Concerto. We're gonna fuse away our 2 monsters on the field, including the scale, summon out Baka, and this is gonna be Chainlink 1 on the Baka. Chainlink 2 is going to be the refrain. Chainlink 3 is gonna be the couplet. We're gonna scale ourselves onto the board, and we're going to summon the additional copy of refrain. Refrain is not going to be able to search another copy, but refrain in the pendulum scale will be able to activate target diffusion to boost its attack based off of its level times 200. So you can send it to the graveyard. Now when we put this into the graveyard, we get to summon back a refrain. So we're going to link summon now into our IP Masquerena, and that's going to activate Baka and the Concerto. So Chainlink 1, Chainlink 2, so keep our Chainlinks in mind, and we're going to draw an additional card, which is cool, Ceravis. And come to think about it, this is kind of neat, because we do have Pendulum Scales, and Pendulum Graph Dragon can be summoned via a Pendulum summon and not a Ritual summon, so that's also a card you can use to, if you want to cut down Ceravis to, say, 1 copy, you can put in the Pendulum Graph as well, and you can still use the spell negation part of that card too. So yeah, don't forget about that too. So this is gonna also summon back the refrain back onto the field, and we can continue our Link Climb journey into Exceeds the Pendulum. Exceeds the Pendulum effect, we can add back the refrain that just got put into the pendulum or the extra deck, and then we can use the effect of Exceeds the Pendulum to special summon it onto the field. Cool, now we've continued the Link Climb into Appaloosa. But now you can see why the level 1 really matters, because we can't pendulum summon this card out. We don't have a normal summon for this card. There is an alternative monster you can play over Appaloosa, but it's not a recommendation I would make, which is Saryuja. So you can use Saryuja to special summon this card from your hand, and then you can do the full voiceless line right next to it. You don't have the negation, however, so it's definitely a lot less safe. But who actually uses Nibiru against Voiceless Voice? Probably no one right now, but once they see the Melodious package, it does start to push them in that direction that, hey, maybe I do want to use Nibiru package, considering that you're now more of a combo deck than anything. It's a hard balance, but if you do play Saryuja instead, then you can push it, but you will have to sacrifice another spot in the extra deck, which is why I'm saying the extra deck is so tight, and I wish I could fit more stuff in there. But in the case that you already have the package to play with, so now you can just go Saphira if you already start with Saphira, or a Barrier, or any of the other cards. Remember, you technically have more cards, so you can really push it. If you have Saphira or anything else, your Pendulum summoning can still lead to the Protoss play, and essentially you're just going to still end on the same board. Alright, so that's through a normal summon of Refrain. Because even in the previous combo, I didn't even use my normal summon. That's all I got for this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up button. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If there's anything to improve upon, leave it down in the comments section, because I really want to refine the extra deck a little bit more. I know it's a bit greedy right now. This extra deck is a lot greedier than necessary, because I want to play the Protoss package. I want to lock people out, but if it's not necessary, what would you end on instead? Or what's the additional toolbox that you want for versatility? Would you want to play a Baguska? Would you want to play Oddeyes Pendulum Graph Dragon over the second Ceravis, because now you can pendulum summon the card out? And having a spell negation, basically having additional negation against your opponent, doesn't that really ruin their day as well? So there's lots to think about when it comes to improving this deck, but thank you guys for watching. We're almost at 100k, or by the time I upload this video, we could already be at 100k. For that, I thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I bet Nishi is going to say the same thing. And I'm gonna be going away for a little bit, so well, I probably pre-planned a bunch of uploads anyway. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one, and have a wonderful day.